For much of the 2025 Formula One season, McLaren looked almost untouchable. The McL39 was the clear benchmark of the grid, a car that seemed to work everywhere, in all conditions, on all types of circuits. 7 wins from the first 10 races told a simple story on the surface. McLaren were in control, cruising toward another Constructors' Championship and positioning themselves as the team to beat for the foreseeable future. But Formula One is never that simple. Beneath the results, beneath the celebrations, a high-risk strategic gamble was already taking shape, one whose true consequences would only become clear as the sport edged closer to the all-new 2026 era. Because while McLaren chose to ease off, Red Bull chose to attack. At the height of their dominance, McLaren made a decision that surprised much of the paddock. They stopped meaningful development on the McL39 far earlier than their rivals expected. Not because the car was struggling, not because they were running out of ideas, but because they were winning. That early cushion of victories gave McLaren something extremely valuable in modern Formula One: choice. While other teams were forced to chase lap time just to survive, McLaren could afford to think long-term. The team redirected its focus away from short-term gains and toward the biggest regulation overhaul in over a decade. 2026 was coming, and it wasn't a gentle evolution. It was a full reset. New power units, new energy deployment rules, active aerodynamics, and a completely different aerodynamic philosophy meant that many of the lessons learned in 2025 would soon become obsolete. From McLaren's perspective, pouring resources into squeezing an extra few hundredths from a car already near its ceiling made little sense. Engineering leadership inside the team made that clear. Gains were becoming marginal. 30 milliseconds was considered a strong upgrade, a clear sign that the concept had reached a point of diminishing returns. Every new floor, every revised wing, every subtle change came at a cost: wind tunnel time, CFD capacity, and human focus. McLaren believed those resources would be far more valuable if invested early in understanding the unknown world of 2026. So they made the call: switch off, look ahead, accept that rivals might close the gap late in 2025, but trust that the early start on the future would pay dividends when the slate was wiped clean. Red Bull, however, refused to play along. While McLaren slowed its development push, Red Bull doubled down. Updates kept arriving on the RB21 deep into the season. Small gains stacked on top of each other. Execution sharpened. Performance crept back. Max Verstappen began clawing away at McLaren's once comfortable advantage just as it started to fade. What had looked like a comfortable march toward the end of the season suddenly turned into a fight. That decision reshaped the entire championship narrative. What could have been a controlled run-in became a tense battle that went down to the final race, decided by just 2 points. Red Bull's relentless approach forced McLaren to defend rather than dominate, exposing cracks that had been easy to ignore when the car was comfortably ahead. This is where the tension truly begins. Red Bull's continued development almost certainly came at a cost. Time spent refining the RB21 was time not spent on the 2026 car. But it also brought benefits that are harder to measure on a spreadsheet. The team stayed sharp. Operations were tested under pressure. Aerodynamic concepts were validated in real race conditions. Engineers, strategists, and mechanics stayed in full championship mode right to the very end. McLaren, in contrast, accepted visible performance decline in exchange for theoretical future gains. It was a calculated trade-off, but one that now leaves them waiting to see if that early investment truly translates into a competitive edge, or if Red Bull's relentless culture once again proves decisive when it matters most. Even Zak Brown, a man known for confidence and optimism, has acknowledged that uncertainty. Championship-winning teams rarely admit concern publicly, but Brown has been unusually honest. McLaren, he admits, does not yet know if it made the right call. The team believes in its approach, but belief is not the same as proof. Adding to that unease is the growing belief around Red Bull's 2026 power unit program. The Red Bull-Ford partnership is widely viewed inside the paddock as one of the most underestimated projects heading into the new era. Red Bull Powertrains now has the infrastructure, experience, and stability it previously lacked, while Ford brings enormous technical resources and hybrid expertise. Under regulations where the power unit once again plays a central role, that combination could be devastatingly effective. Crucially, Red Bull enters 2026 with clarity. Everything is built around one driver, Max Verstappen. The team's structure, development priorities, and strategic decisions all orbit a single reference point. That simplicity can be a powerful weapon in a regulation reset, especially when development paths begin to diverge rapidly. McLaren's internal picture is more complex. Yes, they secured a second consecutive Constructors' Championship. Yes, Lando Norris finally achieved his long-awaited world title. But the margins were thin, and the season exposed weaknesses that success alone cannot hide. There were operational errors at critical moments. The double disqualification in Las Vegas. The safety car misjudgment in Qatar. Each mistake reopened the door for Verstappen just when McLaren seemed poised to shut it. There were also slower-than-ideal pit stops, a costly technical retirement in Zandvoort, and rising tension around team orders as the title fight tightened. McLaren were fast, often the fastest, but they were not flawless. And in modern Formula One, flaws are punished brutally. Zak Brown has not tried to deflect those issues. Instead, he has framed 2025 as a necessary stress test. In his communication with fans and stakeholders, Brown acknowledged that it was not a perfect season. It was a revealing one. The pressure exposed where McLaren still needs to grow, from operational discipline to internal communication under championship-level stress. In Brown's view, those lessons may be the team's greatest asset heading into 2026. Regulations can reset performance, but they do not reset experience. The psychological resilience built during a tight title fight carries over. Knowing how it feels to manage pressure, to make decisions with everything on the line, and to survive mistakes without collapsing could give McLaren an edge that no wind tunnel upgrade can deliver. Then there is Oscar Piastri. While Norris took the headlines and the title, Piastri quietly established himself as one of the most complete drivers on the grid. Leading the championship at various points during 2025, he demonstrated maturity, racercraft, and adaptability far beyond his years. His calm under pressure and ability to extract performance without drama stood out in a season defined by tension. Zak Brown's praise of Piastri has been more than just public support. It reflects a strategic reality. Entering a regulation reset with two genuine title contenders is a rare luxury. It gives McLaren flexibility, depth, and insurance against form fluctuations. But it also introduces risk. Managing ambition internally is never easy, especially when both drivers believe they can be world champion. Red Bull does not face that problem. Their hierarchy is clear and undisputed. McLaren must balance internal harmony while fighting an external rival that thrives on singular focus. In a season where development directions could split early and dramatically, that balance may prove just as important as aerodynamic efficiency or power unit performance. All of this brings the story back to the central question. McLaren chose potential over certainty. They sacrificed guaranteed short-term strength for the promise of long-term advantage. Red Bull chose pressure over preparation, pushing to the very end even if it meant compromising early 2026 development. Both paths are dangerous. Both could define the next era of Formula One. As the sport approaches the 2026 regulations, one truth is impossible to ignore. McLaren's dominance at the end of the ground effect era guarantees nothing. The slate will be wiped clean. Concepts will be rewritten. Hierarchies will be challenged. And for the first time in years, even McLaren's leadership admits they do not control the narrative. They can only wait and hope they chose correctly. So now the question passes to you. Did McLaren play this perfectly, sacrificing today to secure tomorrow? Or did they open the door for Red Bull's revenge? Can the Norris-Piastri partnership carry its momentum into a new era? Or will Verstappen, armed with Ford power, reclaim control of Formula One once again? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the stories shaping the future of F1.